I want to be the first post-metamodern artist, and I'm not entirely sure what that means. So kind of the goal of this video is to try and figure out what that might look like. And the way I'm thinking that we achieve something like this is by examining the path that modernism has taken from pre-modernism of yesteryear to the metamodernism of today. And although this sounds easy in theory, it's actually been so fucking hard. And most people think modernism is just like this artistic movement, but it's not. You know, it encapsulates political thought, sciences, religion, every branch of philosophy. So it's hard to talk about, but I'm going to do my best. Modernism is a tricky thing to define due to like what it's referring to, and also there's like 3 different types of modern. There's more, but like I'm going to only talk about 3 right here. The first one is the modern era, which is the era in which we currently live in for humanity. Most historians agree that this started with the Renaissance in the 1300s. And then there is the sort of modernism of like culture theory that we're going to be talking about. And finally, there is like the adjective of modern that refers to like a noun's relevance, sort of. So like a modern car is like a car from our time frame rather than like the 60s or whatever. The art of pre-modernism is heavily based in realism and inspired by Christianity. And the reason for that realism is because of the belief that like God created nature, and then therefore nature is the most beautiful thing. So if you're trying to make beautiful art, you need to get as close to depicting it as possible. Also, the photograph hadn't been invented yet, so rich people would pay artists to have themselves depicted or loved ones depicted, because that's how you would generate memories rather than just remembering them. Also in pre-modernism, it was very heavily secular, and also there was the belief that people could be born closer to God, therefore that being was better. These people are the kings, the aristocrats, the high-ranking members in the church, what have you. I believe modernist political thought starts in France with their first revolution, with Rousseau, Robespierre, and Wollstonecraft, and a whole bunch of other thinkers calling into question the needs and legitimacy of a king. This then sparks the rest of modernism and becomes a movement about removing power from individuals and giving it to the people. Western society was turning its back to God in favor of logic and reason. There was a belief that there is an objectively good way of living life, and that sort of being that a good life is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That traces back all the way from the French Revolution, and we can see it in the United States Declaration of Independence. So there's an objectively good way about living life, and there's an objectively right way about achieving that, whether it's democracy or fascism or what have you. So in modern art, this sort of rejection of the old in favor of like the new also followed. It was a rejection of sort of painting like noble people and the rich in favor of painting the proletariat and portraying everyday life. And then also this sort of idea of there being an objective good and an objectively good way to do something followed into art also. However, there was a massive crisis that happened during this time in art because the photograph was invented. And as we talked about earlier, one of the main reasons for painting was to depict things as they were. And however, the photograph is just way better at that than a painter ever could be. So it sparked this sort of identity crisis within art, and that's kind of when we see the birth of Impressionism with Monet and like his lilies and all of that fun stuff. Although Van Gogh was kind of doing it, before, but boo-hoo him. So, however, if you're saying that there is an objective good, but it's not trying to get us close to reality, then what is it? And sort of the thought that modern artists landed on was the idea that they weren't trying to depict reality, they were trying to represent reality. So with Impressionism, you know, artists were taking the impression from that they were getting from nature, all of the colors, the movement of nature and stuff, and they were trying to import that into their art also. What that kind of shows is what form can do for art, and how form helps relate the message that the artist is trying to get across about reality. And like we can see more of this with Pablo Picasso's Guernica. I'll put it like right here or something. And so like looking at this painting, it's not real, you know, it obviously doesn't look real, but it invokes meaning, and invokes like a powerful meaning. And like looking at this, like I hope you can tell what it's supposed to be depicting. It's supposed to be depicting war, you know. And so Pablo Picasso was hoping with his Cubist style that switching all of these perspectives and putting them onto the page sort of gives this disorienting style. And that's very much like what war is and does to the people. It disorients, disfigures, it's brutal, you know. So with all of this weird modern stuff, what I want you to take away, what I want you to remember from modernism is that people thought there were objectively good things and there were objectively good ways to get those things, you know? These modern societies, in order to have their objective truths about the world, they needed to have these stories crafted that would make their objective truths true, you know, and then therefore they know the correct way to live life. These big grand stories are called metanarratives, and that's what postmodernists do not like. Some of the most famous metanarratives come from fascists, most in particularly Hitler. Sort of the metanarrative of Nazi Germany is that the Aryan race is superior than the Jewish race, therefore the Jews need to be exterminated so the Aryans have more resources to thrive. That was the meta-narrative that made the Nazi party right, you know. So postmodernism after World War II kind of saw these meta-narratives of like, hey, wait, these aren't actually good, you know, these have a lot of problems behind them. And another big problem that postmodernists have with these modern meta-narratives is they only include straight white men. And if we look at America again, we have the Declaration of Independence that says we hold these rights to be unalienable, that every man is created equal. And then, you know, we have slavery, and then, you know, women aren't able to vote, and then, you know, like no one's fucking free. Postmodernists saw the lies and the cracks within these meta-narratives, and like the people who they left out of them, they wanted to shine light on that and point out that no, there really aren't objective truths. And if I'm trying to put postmodernism in a box, I would say that they don't think that there is an objective truth about the world. Most of the time, postmodern art tries to focus its attention on the problems with modern art. In particular, how modern art believes that there is like an objectively good way of portraying reality, and even that they can portray reality, you know? My favorite piece of postmodern art is The Treachery of Images. That says this is not a pipe, because it's not, you know, it's a depiction of a pipe, and that's what postmodern art is trying to say a lot of the times. It's trying to say that in no way can art actually represent anything. So within this art, we also see kind of like a total deconstruction of any sort of structure within art. This is where we get Jackson Pollock, and then all of the kind of modern art that most people think modern art is, like this guy right here. Everyone knows about this. Man, this is weird because there's a lot of postmodern art, or art that came out during the postmodern era, seems to resemble modern art in the idea of trying to play with form to depict meaning. And like my favorite example is like Francis Bacon and then his 3 studies for figures at the base of a crucifixion. These boys right here. I would consider these postmodern art simply because it's a direct response to modern ideas. These came out right after World War II, and it's supposed to depict the war, you know, and like the horrors of war. So sometimes postmodern art is modern art with postmodern thought, and that's how I'm willing to define that. But the thing that I want you to take away from postmodernism is that there is no objective truths, and that meta-narratives have lies and cracks within them.
Suppose I let you over the warning this time.
Suppose it doesn't take.
So metamodernism is even harder to talk about than all of these other things, because it's kind of like just beginning, or like it's been going for like the past 20 years, and like we're now just starting to be like, oh, maybe this is what metamodernism is. But I think what metamodern politics would be are ones that critique modern politics and the lies that they perpetuate with their meta-narratives. However, they still believe that there is a rational and logical way about going about things. So if we think of like modern politics as like liberalism or fascism, then we think postmodernism as like anarchism, then we think maybe metamodernism as like an anarcho-communism sort of thing. And then the metamodern existential thought would be that perhaps even though there is no there is no objective truth within the universe, there is no objective meaning, there is no objective purpose to life. That doesn't mean there isn't a subjective one. Every person has the individual capabilities of giving meaning to things, including their own life. And then for art, holy shit. It's so hard to define modern art. Like I've read like a couple of books like on modern art, on like metamodern art, like right here, like, and like people don't know what it is because people don't know what like modernism is. So like metamodernism is kind of like the hot term right now, and like all of these terms like were the hot terms in their times, you know. Like if you were back in like the 20s and you called yourself a modern painter, then you were kind of like the hot shit, you know. And then if you're in the 70s and you called yourself a postmodern artist, then then you were the hot shit. And nowadays, if you call yourself a metamodern artist, then like you're the hot shit nowadays. So like everyone's calling themselves metamodern, but no one knows what it means, like including myself. So like, I'm gonna try and I'm gonna give like a few definitions of what people think metamodernism is, and I'll try to give what I think metamodern art is. Okay, so let's track it. All right, modernism is even though we can't depict reality truly, we can still represent reality. Postmodernism is no, you can't even do that. You can't depict or represent reality. Metamodernism, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of academics' opinion also, is that they understand that they can't depict or represent reality, but they do anyways. They don't care. They just simply, because like that's what people want. People want real life, you know? And I think great examples of these are reality TV shows, YouTube channels based on vlogs and stuff. People presenting real life, although it's not real at all, and like everyone can kind of tell that it's not real. Like some of my roommates' favorite shows is like what is it, Dance Moms, and like that show is so fake, and like everyone in this house knows that it's fake, but they still love it because it's that juicy drama, you know. That's kind of where like people are thinking that's where metamodernism is at the moment. There could also be like metamodern art that is critiquing the ideas of like other things within other eras, but it's just existing within our metamodern time frame. Or it could be art that is portraying these metamodern ideas, like an art that depicts like metamodern political thought. But yeah, so okay, to like keep things short and simple with metamodernism, it's kind of this. The most agreed upon thing is that it's a depiction of reality, often a hyper depiction of reality, which would be like a YouTuber making vlogs about being a YouTuber and stuff like that. And I think we see a lot of stuff like that today. That would be considered metamodern art. But although, this is confusing stuff, and I thought I knew what I was talking about, and now I'm just like confused and embarrassed, so. So the reason I wanted to be the first post-metamodern artist in the first place was because the artists you hear the most about are the ones who start movements, you know, the ones who spark generations of artists to come after them, you know, and that's the kind of artist I want to be. So I thought by like theory crafting my own movement, I would be able to know exactly what I needed to do to be able to achieve that type of artistic success, you know. However, it's fucking hard to like theory craft an artistic and cultural movement, you know. And also, well, researching a lot of these artists, you know, I think I realized that most of these guys don't know what they're doing, you know. Well, I'd like, obviously they have like an idea of what they're doing, but you know, I don't think they're thinking like as big picture as I am, you know. So I think what I need to do is I need to kind of just create in the now. So when I'm the past, the future can just figure me out, you know. I don't need to figure me out. I just need to be me, you know.